If you had passed through our neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina, that afternoon, you would have seen only calm. Brick homes with wide lawns, maple trees leaning over sidewalks, driveways washed clean from the morning rain. And then my house sits at the end of the street, a white two-story home with black shutters and a porch big enough for 2 rocking chairs and a small table. It looked peaceful, almost perfect. No one passing by would have guessed that the woman inside had paid for every inch of it. My name is Olivia Carter, and I was 32 when I bought that house. The check I wrote was for $680,000. I can still picture the moment I signed it, my hand shaking slightly, even though I had worked hard for this. A decade in a New York finance job had built my savings. The rest came from my aunt in London, who left me her small flat after she passed away. When the flat sold for about £500,000, the money gave me safety, something I had not had much of growing up. My aunt had always told me not to depend on anyone else. While growing up, she reminded me again and again that love and money could mix, but trust and money needed rules. I still remember her voice on the video call when I told her I was moving to Charlotte to marry Daniel. She smiled with soft eyes, but lifted one brow the way she always did when she was about to say something important. "Love him with your heart," she said, "but protect your future with your mind. Write your name on what you build." At the time, I thought she was being cautious. Now, I see she was being wise. When I moved to Charlotte, Daniel helped me look at houses, but I made the final choice. I paid for everything. Inspection fees, closing costs, taxes, furniture later on. I wanted the house in my name because I had earned it. We talked about it openly. "I want something solid," I told him one evening as we walked through the empty living room, the keys still warm in my hand. "Something that is mine. When you work for years to get ahead, you want to see it." He laughed like it was nothing. "Olivia, I do not care," he said, pulling me close. "I am marrying you, not your property. Whether the papers say your name or mine, it is still home for both of us." His easy confidence soothed me back then. I took him at his word. My lawyer in New York helped me create a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. It did not divide anything unfairly. It simply listed what was mine before marriage, including the house, and protected it as separate property. Daniel signed without hesitation almost too quickly, but at the time, I thought it meant he was trusting. Maybe even romantic. I moved into the house early, so I could settle into my new job in Charlotte. Daniel moved in after the wedding, smiling as he carried his boxes inside. For a few months, it felt like the beginning of a calm, gentle life. Then his mother arrived. Her name was Elaine, and she had a way of walking through a doorway like she was the one who built the walls. She was tall, narrow-faced, and dressed in soft cardigans that did not match the sharpness of her eyes. She lived across town in a much smaller place, but treated my home like it was her family's estate. She visited often. Too often. The first time she stepped into the living room, she spread her arms and said, "Now this is a proper family home. Big enough for the Christmas parties we used to have." She wandered through my house like she was touring it for buyers. I watched her touch the counters, open the cabinets, and evaluate everything like a judge at a county fair. Sometimes her words slipped out like little blades. "You are lucky my son chose you," she told me during one visit, her voice sweet but heavy with meaning. "He always aimed high." Or, when we talked about kitchen remodeling, she said, "Just use the family money. Daniel will inherit it all anyway." Her comments always circled the same idea. Daniel was the valuable one, and I should be grateful to walk beside him. She had no idea that the remodeled kitchen cost me $14,000. She had no idea that my little job, as she called it, paid more than Daniel's dealership salary. Or maybe she didn't know, and it bothered her. Women like her saw money as a ladder, and she believed her son belonged on the top rung. I tried to ignore the small remarks. I tried to focus on my marriage and the life I thought we were building. I told myself her behavior came from loss after Daniel's father passed away, that she felt protective, maybe even lonely. But the truth sat like a shadow between us. She wanted control, and control came from pretending the house was hers through her son. One night after dinner, as I cleared plates, She leaned against the counter and said, "You will not have to work forever once Daniel moves up at the dealership. He has always been the one with ambition." The implication stung, but I smiled politely. "My job is important to me," I said. "Well," she answered, "as long as everything stays in the family, that is what matters." She said family, like I was an outsider renting space. I told myself not to make trouble. I was building a home, not a war zone. But deep down, something in me knew the peace would not last. And I was right. Because the day I realized how wrong everything was started with the sight of my clothes flying through the air and landing on the grass I had paid to cut. That was the moment the quiet house on the peaceful street showed its real story. And it was only the beginning. It happened on one of those warm Carolina Saturdays when the air feels soft and the sun lands gently on the porch. Dana was working a double shift at the dealership, so the house was quiet. I had laundry tumbling in the dryer, music playing low on my phone, and I was moving from room to room trying to catch up on chores I had ignored all week. That was when Elaine arrived. She did not knock the way most people do. She tapped the door once, pushed it open, and stepped inside as if she lived there. She sat on the edge of the couch, knees together, hands folded, staring at me with the kind of expression people usually reserve for reading court files. "I need to ask you something," she said. Her voice was soft but sharp. I turned off the music and looked at her.
"Sure."
"What is going on?" She tilted her head. "Are you with my son because you love him? Or because you know what our family can offer you?" I blinked at her. "Elaine, what?" "You heard me," she said. "You are smart. You saw his potential. You knew he would move up at the dealership. You married him for our future money." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. "Your future money?" I repeated. "Elaine, I paid for this house. I pay most of our bills. I did not marry Daniel for money. I married him because I loved him." Her eyes narrowed. The last bit of politeness drained from her face. "I am not stupid, Olivia," she snapped. "Women like you always have a plan. High-paying jobs, big talks, but no loyalty. You see a man like Daniel and think he is your ticket into the good life." Heat rose in my chest. I stood a little straighter. "I have never used your son," I said. "If anything, the situation is the opposite." Her mouth twisted. "Get out of my son's house," she said. "You do not speak to me like that under his roof." Something cold settled inside me. "This is not his roof," I said, my voice low. "This house is mine. I bought it with my money. My name is on the title." She acted like she did not hear a single word. She pushed past me, walked straight down the hallway, and went into the bedroom I shared with Daniel. I followed her, my heart pounding. She yanked my suitcase from the closet and threw it on the bed. Then she started pulling open drawers and tossing my clothes into the suitcase with jerky, angry motions. "Elaine, stop," I said, stepping forward. "What are you doing? You cannot do this." She turned toward me, eyes blazing with something far deeper than irritation. "You walked into my son's life with your smug attitude and your Europe stories and your savings," she hissed. "You made him feel small. You made him think he is not enough. You talk about your trips like we are beneath you. If you want to leave, then leave. Do it now before he realizes who you really are." She shoved the suitcase into my arms so hard I stumbled back. Then she dragged me toward the front door, my clothes spilling out as we moved. "Out," she said, opening the door with a jerk. "Right now." I stepped outside because I did not want her to touch me again. The sunlight hit my face, too bright, too warm for the moment I was living. I stood on the porch holding the suitcase with one hand, my other arm wrapped around my laptop bag. Behind me, I heard the door slam. My heartbeat was so loud, I could barely hear the neighborhood sounds around me. A lawnmower in the distance. A dog barking. Cars rolling slowly past. Life looked normal everywhere, except on my porch. After a moment of quiet, the door flew open again. Elaine began tossing the rest of my clothes onto the lawn.
Shirts.
Shoes. A sweater. She tossed them with the force of someone throwing out garbage. "This is what happens to women who think they can fool my family," she shouted from the doorway. I bent down to grab my laptop before it tumbled off the steps. My hands shook as I scooped up a few scattered items. I felt a strange mix of anger and numbness. And then I heard the sound of an engine. Daniel's blue sedan turned the corner and pulled up fast. He parked crookedly, practically leaping out of the car. His tie was loose. His hair was a little messy. He stopped in the middle of the driveway, looking around like the world had tilted under him. His eyes traced the scene in seconds. My clothes are on the ground. Me standing with my suitcase. His mother was in the doorway, jaw tight with triumph. "What is going on?" he yelled, slamming the car door. "She is leaving," Elaine answered proudly. "I told her to get out. She is only here for our money." I stared at Daniel, waiting for something. A defense. A shock. A question. Instead, his expression twisted into panic. Not sadness. Not fear for me. Panic. He looked at the house. Not at me. "Mom, stop," he shouted, running toward the porch. "Do not do this, or we will lose everything." I froze. The world went silent for a second. Lose everything. Not lose me. Not lose our marriage. Do not lose trust or respect. Lose everything. Money. The house. Comfort. Status. I felt a quiet snap inside my chest, like a small branch breaking. All the things I had ignored made sense now. The way he bragged about our house, even though he never made a single mortgage payment. The way he begged me to invest in his side project with my bonus. The way he asked for a copy of the prenup was just for our files. He had not married me for love. He had married me for safety. He had married me for the future I could afford. I hugged my laptop to my chest and finally found my voice. "I see," I said softly. Neither of them heard me. They were too busy arguing with each other, blaming each other, yelling over me. But my decision was already solid.
Come.
Final. I walked to my car, opened the trunk, and placed my suitcase inside. Daniel finally noticed. "Olivia, where are you going?" I closed the trunk and met his eyes. "I am going to talk to my lawyer," I said. "Enjoy my house while you still can." Then I got into my car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. I checked into a small hotel on the east side of Charlotte that night, the kind of place where the hallways smelled faintly of old carpet and lemon cleaner. The room had a single window that faced a parking lot and a bedspread full of tiny blue squares. It was not home, but it was quiet, and after what had happened, quiet felt like the closest thing to breathing again. I sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop open, my suitcase still half zipped on the floor. The screen glowed in the dim light, and my inbox looked like a forgotten museum of my own life. Emails from bankers, real estate agents, inspectors, and then the legal documents from my attorney in Boston, Michael Harris. I opened the first file, the one from 5 years ago, the day I decided to buy the house. The memory came back with a strange mix of pride and ache. I had been sitting in a noisy cafe in Manhattan, right after getting off a long conference call, dreaming about a quieter life in North Carolina. At that time, moving to Charlotte felt like a brave and hopeful step toward a future with Daniel. I had called Michael because I trusted my aunt's judgment. He had been her friend for years, someone she described as a lawyer who sees through smoke. During our first call, his voice was steady and matter-of-fact. "If you are bringing significant assets into this marriage," he said, "you need a clear prenuptial agreement. Not to limit love. To protect fairness. That includes any inheritance or property purchased before the marriage." I had agreed. I always believed in protecting what you build. And after losing my aunt, her words still rang in my head. Protect your future, no matter how in love you feel. The prenup was simple.
Fair.
I kept what was mine. Daniel kept what was his. Anything after marriage would be shared. The house was listed as my separate property. My savings were mine. The proceeds from the London flat, £500,000 after taxes, remained my personal inheritance. At the time, I remember feeling uneasy handing Daniel the document. I had sat across from him at the dining table in his apartment, pushing the papers toward him with shaking fingers. "I know this feels formal," I said. But my aunt wanted me to be safe. I want us to be honest with each other. Daniel had smiled, warm and easy. Liv, I am not with you for money, he said, taking the pen. You are the one with the fancy job and the real bank account. I am just the guy trying to impress you. Let's sign this and start our life. He did not hesitate. He did not ask questions. He signed each page with smooth strokes, almost relaxed. Back then, I took that as trust. Now, sitting in that hotel room, I wondered if it was a calculation. The signatures were there. The stamps. The dates. Everything is clean and official. I sat for a long time reading every line as if I were reading someone else's story. Finally, I forwarded the entire document to Michael with one sentence. I think I need a divorce, and I need to protect my home. He called me the next morning. I reviewed all the documents, he said. You still own the house. Completely. His name is not on the deed, nor on the loan. The prenup is solid. He has no legal claim to the property. I closed my eyes as something in my chest loosened. So, I can take the house back? I whispered, afraid I was hearing wrong. Yes, he said. But you need to file for divorce first. After that, we can address occupancy. I will connect you with someone in Charlotte who can help. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? I thought of my friend Hannah. We had known each other since college, and she had always been the kind of person who showed up exactly when life got too heavy. I will figure it out, I said. By evening, I was sitting at her small kitchen table in her downtown apartment while she made tea. Boxes of old textbooks were stacked against the walls, and her cat curled up on my lap as I told her everything. When I repeated Daniel's words, "Do not do this, or we will lose everything," she froze with the kettle in her hand. He really said that? Yes, I said, staring at the steam rising from my cup. Like I am a walking bank. Hannah sat across from me and shook her head slowly. He knew the house was yours, she said. He knew about your savings. He knew about the inheritance. I nodded. I think he always believed I would never leave, I whispered. That I was too polite or too in love to protect myself. Hannah reached out, squeezed my hand, and said, "Then it is time to show him that he misjudged you." The next few weeks felt like two lives running side by side. On one side, my job, early meetings, reports, deadlines. On the other hand, divorce paperwork, property forms, and long calls with lawyers who walked me through every step. Michael referred me to a Charlotte attorney named Lauren Parker. She had sharp eyes, steady hands, and a tone that could scrape truth out of any situation. "We will make this clean," she said during our first meeting. "You are not the one who needs to be afraid." We filed for the divorce. Letters were sent to Daniel and to the house, making it clear that locking me out of my property was unlawful. That was when the messages started.
Dozens of them.
Voice notes.
Calls.
Text sent at midnight. "You are overreacting," he said in one message. "Mom did not mean it. You know she gets emotional." Another time, his voice sounded almost pleading. "You know how much I gave up for you. I moved cities. I changed jobs. You cannot destroy everything over one argument." But not once did he say, "I love you." Not once did he say, "I choose you over this house." All he talked about was what he would lose. His mother called me, too. Her voice was full of venom. "You ungrateful girl," she hissed. "You think you can punish us with your money? That house is ours by right. You will not win." "Yes, I will," I said, my voice so calm it surprised even me. "Because the truth is on paper, and the paper does not lie." Then I blocked her number. When the day of the first court hearing arrived, I walked into the courtroom wearing a navy dress, my hair tied back. I felt steady.
Solid.
Ready. Daniel sat on the opposite side with his lawyer. Elaine sat behind him, arms crossed tight. Neither looked at me. The judge reviewed the documents slowly, carefully. Each page confirmed what I already knew. The house was mine. The savings were mine. The inheritance was mine. Finally, the judge looked up. Based on the evidence provided, the marital home is the separate property of the petitioner, Olivia Carter. Elaine gasped, loud and stunned. Daniel's head snapped toward me, shock carving deep lines across his face. He had always assumed the money protected him. He never imagined it would set me free. And as I sat there, shoulders straight, hands steady in my lap, I realized something powerful. For the first time since marrying him, I felt like I had my life back. 2 months after the court hearing, I found myself once again standing in front of the white 2-story house with black shutters. The yard looked almost the same as the day I left. The grass had grown unevenly. A few weeds pushed up between the stepping stones. The porch swing I bought from a store in Ohio still hung there, gently swaying in the breeze as if waiting for someone to sit on it. It hurt to see it like that, cared for by no one, loved by no one. But this time, I was not here as a guest or a wife. I was here as the owner. A local officer stood beside me, calm and neutral, holding a small clipboard. A locksmith stood on the other side, carrying a metal case full of tools. I had a folder in my hands, filled with court orders, each page stamped clearly. Daniel and Elaine had been told to move out. They ignored every notice. Today, the law gave me the right to reclaim my home. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. "Let's do this," I said. The officer stepped up to the door and knocked loudly. "Mr. Carter, Ms. Carter," he called out. "This is the police. You need to open the door. We have a court order." For a long moment, there was silence. I could feel my heart beating in my fingertips. Then the door opened just a crack. Elaine's face appeared, sharp and furious, her eyes narrowing the moment she saw me.
"What do you want?" she snapped.
The officer showed her the papers. "You have been ordered to vacate this property," he said. "The owner is present." She turned toward me, disbelief pulling at her mouth. "This is our home," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "You cannot do this to your own husband." I lifted the folder slowly, letting her see the court stamps, the signatures, the order that backed every word I was about to say. "This was my home," I said softly. "You threw me out. Now I am taking it back." Daniel appeared behind her then. His hair was messy, his shirt was wrinkled, and he looked nothing like the man who used to step out of the car with confident strides. Now he looked smaller, tired, cornered. "Olivia, please," he said, stepping forward with his hands out.
"We can talk about this."
"We can sell the house and split the money. That is fair. You do not need everything." I held his gaze. "It would not be fair," I said. "I bought this house before we married. I paid every mortgage payment. I kept everything running. And you allowed your mother to throw me out while you worried about losing money, not losing me. I am not bargaining. I am reclaiming what is mine." The locksmith stepped closer. "If you do not let us in, we will begin changing the locks anyway," he said quietly. "The order requires it." Something in Daniel shifted. His shoulders sank. He stepped back. Elaine tried to say something under her breath, but her voice had lost its power. She moved aside because she had no choice. We entered the house. Walking through those rooms felt like walking through a life that never belonged to me the way I thought it did. A cheap painting hung in the hallway where my framed photograph of the Thames once was. The kitchen counter had takeout boxes stacked near the sink I had chosen during remodeling. Shoes lined the entryway that were not mine, piled carelessly like I had never lived here at all. The officer walked the space, nodding. "You have 1 hour to pack essential items," he told them. "Anything left behind will be arranged for later pickup under Miss Carter's terms." Daniel and Elaine moved around the house quickly, stuffing clothes into bags, opening drawers, slamming cabinets. Their voices lowered to irritated whispers, full of blame they tossed at each other like sharp stones. At one point, Daniel walked over to me. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I loved you," he said. "You know that, right?" I looked at him for a long moment. "I think you loved the life I gave you," I said. "And maybe you loved me in your own way. But when you showed me what mattered most to you, you chose money over me. You said everything, and you meant the house, the comfort, the lifestyle. Not us." He flinched like the words hit him physically. Elaine dragged a suitcase past us and muttered, "You will regret this. Once people see how cold you are, no one will want you." A strange calm washed over me. No one who wants my bank balance instead of my heart is someone I want in my life, I said. If this drives the wrong people away, then it is a blessing. The hour passed quickly. The officer walked them to the door. I stood just inside, watching as they stepped onto the porch with their bags. For a moment, I saw the house I used to dream about, the rooms I expected to fill with memories. I had once pictured birthday dinners here, quiet mornings with coffee, warm evenings on the porch swing. But then I remembered the day Elaine threw my clothes across the lawn, treating me like an intruder in my own home. I remembered Daniel's voice shouting about losing everything. And with that, the past loosened its hold. The officer stepped back inside and closed the door. The locksmith began drilling out the old lock, the sound echoing through the entryway. When he finished, he handed me a new set of keys. They were cool and smooth in my palm, heavy in a satisfying way. "Good luck, Miss Carter," he said with a nod. "Thank you," I replied. After they left, the house grew quiet. Not the painful quiet from before, but a peaceful stillness that felt like a fresh start. I walked slowly through each room, touching the walls I had painted, the counters I had chosen, the windows I had cleaned. This time, the house did not feel like something I had lost. It felt like something I had taken back. In the kitchen, I pulled out a notebook and started writing a new plan. I would rent out one room to a graduate student from the university downtown. I would turn the small spare room into a home office and finally launch my own consulting business. I would take a trip to Europe again, not to hide from heartbreak, but to celebrate my own strength. Later, as the sun turned the street soft and golden, I sat on the porch swing with a cup of tea. The same swing where I once imagined a future with someone else. Now, it felt like the place where my real future began. People say divorce is a failure. For me, it was the first time I chose myself fully. Elaine accused me of marrying for money. Daniel warned her not to push me out, or they would lose everything. In the end, they were both wrong. The only thing I lost was a man and a family who saw me as a wallet. What I kept was my house, my peace, and the one thing that mattered most. I kept myself.